welcome to PlantFit Meg. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I hope you'll take a look around at some other videos while you're here. I make videos about healthy weight loss, simple plant-based recipes, and living a healthy lifestyle. If you're new to the channel, I've lost 80 pounds on a plant-based diet and completely regained my health, so I'd love to share that here, and I'd love to have you join in the PlantFit Meg community. Today's video is going to be about mindless eating and emotional eating and how to stop both of those things. And I will admit that mindful eating is a bit easier to get into than stopping emotional eating. Emotional eating is very complex. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's possible that these strategies will be very helpful to you. It is also possible that you may require additional help and additional advice, in which case I absolutely always recommend, if you are concerned about your nutrition, concerned about your health and weight loss goals, absolutely speak to a plant-based doctor, a lifestyle medicine physician, or another qualified healthcare professional to discuss your specific situation and your specific concerns. I'm just a human who has lost 80 pounds on a plant-based diet, and so I'm sharing my experience and what has worked for me. If you like this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe to the channel below if you haven't already, and let's dive right in. My first tip is to keep a food journal. And I have mentioned this before in previous videos, but I do think it is very helpful to keep a food journal just to keep track of what is going into your body, what you're eating. Do it without judgment as much as possible, and just write down what you're eating, just so you have a baseline of where you're actually at and what you're actually consuming in a day. You might be eating things sort of mindlessly or stress eating from time to time and not really factoring in those foods or considering that you're adding those things to your daily diet or your weekly diet. And so it can be helpful for a short period of time to just keep a food journal and just keep track of what you're taking into your body. It can give you great insight into your current habits to look at a full day or a full week of eating to see where you're at and see what your current habits are and what you might want to tweak or shift, or what you're doing that you didn't even realize you were doing. Related to this and the food journal and being aware of food choices is be mindful of bites and nibbles. So I used to be someone, and I still am to a certain degree, someone who tends to eat a lot of bites and nibbles throughout the day. So when I'm putting together my son's lunchbox in the morning, if there's leftover food that won't fit into his lunchbox or his thermos, I tend to eat it. I don't want it to go to waste, and so I tend to just eat it. I'm also someone who had a hard time leaving little bits of leftovers at the end of the night. So if I'm eating dinner, for example, with my family, and there were, 2 scoops of something left, I would feel the need to eat it instead of putting it aside because it didn't seem like enough to leave as leftover, and so I would just finish it up. And there's not anything wrong with doing those things, and I don't want this to make you feel stressed about the little bites and nibbles throughout the day. It's just about creating awareness and mindfulness around your habits so that if you want to change your habits, you know what they are so that you can take steps towards making changes. And if you're just having a little bite or nibble of your kiddo's lunch in the morning, it's probably not a big deal. It probably doesn't make a huge impact on your day. But if you're doing that at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and having, little bites and tastes all the time throughout the day, it can really impact your full day of eating. Again, it's not to stress or feel guilt or feel weird about having little bites here and there. It's totally fine. It's good. Just be aware of it. Meal planning and preparation can be very helpful with mindless eating, and I would say even with stress eating sometimes. So if you have your meals sort of planned out to a certain degree and you have foods prepped in the fridge ready to go, then there's not as much decision making to happen and be, decisions to be made once meal times come around. And it's really easy to just have a few options in the fridge, have a few options in the freezer, have just simple things that you can throw together for an easy meal, like frozen veggies, canned beans. Maybe you've batch cooked some rice or potatoes and you can throw something together pretty simply. And that makes it a lot easier to stay on track. And if you're eating really wholesome, nourishing, full meals, it can reduce the amount of that mindless grazing throughout the day. Hit the pause button. So before you eat something, consider whether you're actually hungry and whether you actually want to eat the food that's there. Sometimes in the past, I definitely caught myself just eating because the food was there. I maybe had already eaten my lunch, but someone brings lunch in at the office. So before you eat, consider whether you're really hungry or why you want to eat the food that's there. If it's just because it's there and available, but you're not really hungry, maybe consider not eating it. If you want to eat the food, eat the food, but it's about taking that time to pause and consider and try to think it through and think about it. That can be helpful in building that mindfulness and that awareness to make a more informed decision for yourself. I also got into the habit of eating things at particular times of the day just because it was that time of the day. So, 3 o'clock would roll around and, oh, it's time for a coffee and a snack of some kind. And it was just a habit. It was just something that I did without thinking about it. And once I actually considered what I was doing and why, I was able to reflect and realize, oh, I don't really need this thing. I'm just doing it because I've just been doing it. And it's just a habit. So it was pretty simple at that point to replace it with something else or just eliminate it at that point if I wasn't hungry and didn't need it. If you're really bored and you find yourself mindlessly eating, distract yourself. Put yourself on pause for a second and distract yourself and do something else. If you're able to catch it before you start mindlessly eating and you're able to bring awareness to it and realize, oh, I'm about to do this thing, distract yourself and do something else. A great way to change behavior is to replace a habit with another habit. Sometimes if we try to just stop the behavior, it's extremely difficult because we have this pattern and this routine and rhythm. And so if we're able to replace it with something else, that can be really helpful in switching things up, but maintaining some form of habit at that time or when you're experiencing certain feelings, emotions, thoughts. Another issue is not feeling full or satisfied by your meals. So if you eat a meal and maybe you eat it really quickly, or it's just not a very nourishing meal and you don't feel full and satisfied, it can lead to that sort of mindless sort of grazing throughout the day, or even right after the meal, it can kind of lead to that mindless sort of, oh, I think I need another little something, and you're kind of searching for that extra little something that will make you feel full and satisfied, and can lead to overeating, right? A great way to deal with this is to eat more food. So if you're not feeling full and satisfied, there is a way to eat more food and still make progress on your health and weight loss goals. And the way to do that is by eating more non-starchy vegetables, eating your green vegetables. Make those foods an important part of your meals. You'll be adding volume, you'll be adding bulk, you'll be adding water and fiber, and the calorie content will not be super high, but it'll be very nutrient dense and will keep you feeling fuller longer. Another issue with mindful eating is eating really quickly or eating while distracted. And those two things can kind of come together often. So I have definitely experienced this in the past. Definitely with my husband, we used to sit in front of the TV and we would eat meals in front of the TV and tons of snacks in front of the TV and all of that. And not to say to never eat a meal in front of the television or never have a snack in front of the TV, because it happens, it's fine. But if you can make it a new habit and a new pattern and a new routine to start eating meals at your kitchen table or at a specific spot in your house, It'll be a quick way to reduce the distraction while you're eating so that you can focus on your meal and really enjoy it and really taste all the flavor and texture and see the color and appreciate the way that it smells and really take a little more time with it to really appreciate and be grateful for your food and for your meal. I know this isn't always possible, and it might seem like a bit of a lofty goal for some, because a lot of us eat, on the go, or eat while we're working, eat while we're doing other things. We're trying to multitask and do social media or do other things at the same time. But I really recommend doing your best to try to limit that as much as possible and really just focus on the food and focus on the people that you're with and really enjoy it. Related to distracted eating and eating quickly, sometimes can be not being in touch with hunger and fullness cues. And I absolutely struggled with this in the beginning. I didn't know when I was hungry or when I was full. Before I went plant-based, I just kind of always felt hungry in a way. Like I could always eat even if I wasn't hungry particularly. And it's hard to explain to people who haven't experienced it. For my husband, he thinks it's just wild that I could not tell when I was hungry or full, because to him it was just a very basic, foundational, easy thing. And for me, it was really challenging. And so to really get in touch with if I was hungry or if I was not, and really tuning in and paying attention to my body and paying attention to when I was hungry, and then trying to fuel it in the best way possible most of the time in a consistent way to get to my goals, was really, really helpful. And it took time to sort of figure that out. And am I really hungry? I wouldn't know whether I was full until I was super stuffed, like really, really almost uncomfortable full. And it did take me a lot of time to figure out when was enough, when could I stop, and when would full be full. And I think taking a little more time with meals, slowing down a little bit if possible, really appreciating the food and being grateful for the food, and really just taking a little bit more time with it. It doesn't have to be hours and hours or anything crazy, but just taking just a tiny bit of extra time can be really helpful in monitoring hunger and fullness. And also recognizing when I had overeaten and then realizing, oh, okay. And then I could go back to my food journal and I can, jot down what I was eating and what was going on, and then learn and sort of play it out as an experiment on myself and learn as I went and figure out what worked best for me to feel nourished and full and satisfied, but not overstuffed and overdoing it. This one might be a little controversial, but I would say take judgment out of food choices as much as possible. There are a lot of foods that are classified as good foods or bad foods. And to a certain degree, I understand that and I can relate to it and identify with it. I prefer to think of foods as more on a continuum rather than just black and white, good or bad. There are foods that I don't eat as a vegan and as someone who tries to limit processed foods and things like this for my health. But at the same time, I look at these foods on a continuum. So on one side of the continuum, we have healthful, nourishing foods that will give me energy, optimize my health, allow me to maintain my weight loss, and feel great. And on the other end of the spectrum, there are foods that will not do those things for me. They might not provide the best energy. They might not be the best fuel. They might impact my health, and they may impact my weight, particularly if I choose those foods regularly over time. I think it's very easy for us to make a bad choice and then turn it into I'm a bad person because I made a bad choice. And so I never want myself to feel that way, or my clients, or any of you to feel that way if you make that decision. If you think of food choices as choices, yes, they have a consequence, yes, they have an impact, and you'll feel the effects of it maybe that day, maybe the next day, maybe a few years down the line, depending on your patterns of those food choices. But if you make one choice that is off track, let's say, that's, let's say, just for example, it's a fast food situation and you make that choice, that's okay. It's okay to make that choice. The problem comes into play when you're not being mindful of those choices and those patterns and habits remain and become a cycle. If you do make a choice that doesn't align with your values and your goals, resolve to make a better choice the next time. Do your best to not be down in the dumps or down on yourself or hard on yourself. Do your best. If you make a mistake, pick yourself up and move on. Make a better choice for your next snack, your next meal, your next piece of food that you put into your body. I would also say take the guilt and shame out of emotional eating or stress eating. Stress eating and emotional eating serves a purpose. It's a coping mechanism, and it might have deleterious effects in other ways, but it does serve a purpose and a function. And you're not weak or lacking willpower if you emotionally eat. It's often how we were raised, it's how we've seen family members, friends, and others cope. It's what we see in the media a lot. We're shown this idea that women in particular, go through a breakup, eat your feelings, lost your job, eat your feelings. And we see this over and over again, and it becomes what we do and it becomes our experience. And if we're able to cope with our emotions in a more effective way and feel what we feel, but then manage the difficulties of life in another way besides eating, we'll be all the better for it. So take the guilt and shame out of eating. Be patient and be kind to yourself in the process. It takes time to build new patterns of behavior. Be patient and be kind to yourself. And these can be really tricky to navigate because we are used to beating ourselves up and being really hard on ourselves. And why can't I just do it if I know what to do? Why can't I just do the thing? And it's more complicated than that. And for the first 30 years of my life, I didn't eat a super healthful diet. I was in a dietary pattern that was not supportive of my health and not supportive of my weight loss goals. And I stayed in that pattern and that routine and that cycle and yo-yoing up and down with my weight. Once I was able to shift gears, make a new choice, carve a new path, and go in a new direction, I started to regain my health. I started to lose the weight. I started to feel more myself and more happy and have a greater zest for life and feel more hopeful and optimistic about my future. But it took time. I didn't make the decision to go plant-based and then the next day drop 10 pounds and have my health back, or even the next month, or even the next couple of months. It takes time, and I don't say that it takes time to deter people from making positive changes, but just to be realistic and to say you need to be patient with yourself. It can take some time. So trust the process, do your best. There is an initial effort that might feel really challenging at times and might seem difficult, but if you keep it as simple as possible and make meals that you absolutely love and that you really just enjoy, that make you feel really full and nourished and energetic and ready to take on your day, it will be so helpful for you to keep going and keep on track and progress and work towards your goals. I still have ups and downs, and I'm not perfect. And I think it's important to put it out there that I have completely regained my health. I've lost 80 pounds. I'm feeling energetic. I'm feeling great. I'm loving life. But I also have ups and downs with this. I still sometimes fall into those old habits and old patterns of behavior. It's much easier to snap myself out of it now because it's not as much a familiar pattern. There's some time has built up over the course of, 5 years of being plant-based and getting into a new rhythm, but that still happens sometimes. I was chatting with, this was probably a couple years ago now, but I'll give you guys an example. I was chatting with my parents about something really stressful. I don't even remember what it was right now, but I stood there and I ate a whole tray of sweet potato. I had just cooked it up and it was sitting on top of the stovetop, and we were in the kitchen just chatting, and I just mindlessly ate the whole tray of sweet potato. And after I was done, I looked at the tray and I looked at my parents and I said, I just stress ate that whole tray of sweet potatoes. And we all kind of laughed about it because who stress eats sweet potatoes? But I noticed and I realized that it happened, and I was like, shrug. First of all, it's sweet potatoes, so who cares? But even if it had been ice cream or any other food choice, it's okay. It happened. I can look at what happened before I stress ate the thing and try to figure out how to avoid that in future, or how to make a different choice in future, and how to better my situation and work towards my goals. But I just want to put it out there that I still have those moments sometimes where it happens, right? So nobody's perfect. Even if someone's image online looks perfect, nobody's perfect. Everyone has their moments. Everyone has their difficult times, dark times. And over time, it gets so much easier too. It gets so much easier. And I don't know if this is the experience for everyone, but for me, it got so simple. And just once I got into a new routine and a new rhythm and a new pattern of behavior, that just became the default setting. And so now when I, have veggies for breakfast and I mix up my oatmeal with, some riced cauliflower and fruit and flax seeds and all these yummy, nourishing foods, it's just the default setting. It's just what I do. It's just how I live. And initially, I never would have had vegetables for breakfast. I never, and you don't have to eat vegetables for breakfast either. I'm just giving an example of something that has been a dramatic shift for me that I never thought would ever happen. And now it's just the default, and it's just what I do. Before I eat my waffles on the weekend, I have a bowl of broccoli or a bowl of Brussels sprouts, and I love it. It's not punishment. It's not anything bad or anything that I'm forcing myself to do. I just feel great doing it, and I love the added nutrition and the boost that it gives me in the morning. And it might not be for everyone, and that's totally fine. But if you can find ways to make this lifestyle simple, make it fun, and do it your own way. Test, experiment, figure it out, and come up with your own ways to be a mindful eater and to not stress eat and to cope with your emotions in different ways, whether it be speaking to family and friends, talking to a therapist, doing yoga, doing meditation, getting out in nature. There are so many different ways to try to cope and try to manage stress and manage emotions, and different things will work for different people, and different things will work for people in different times and stages of their lives too. I have found that to be true for myself at times in the past before going plant-based. I dealt with anxiety and depression. I had to take medication. I had to talk to someone. Sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes that's what what you require to move forward and to change your patterns and change your behavior. And I'm thrilled to be where I am now, 80 pounds lighter and feeling so healthy and happy. And if I can do it, you can do it. I encourage you to breathe. Take a moment to breathe with me. It's okay. You will be okay. You will figure it out. You will figure out what works best for you. And you do have control over this. You can make it work. You can figure it out. So I wish you all the best on your health and weight loss journey. If you liked this video, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel below if you haven't already. I hope you really enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.